And welcome to the Beaches Watch City of Jacksonville Mayoral Candidate Forum. I'm Maria Mark, President of Beaches Watch, and your host. And my esteemed colleague, Bill Gulliford, will be the forum moderator. First, I want to thank Director Bobby Spahn and the Beaches Vineyard Church for hosting our forum in their wonderful and spacious facility. We could not have done this without your generosity. For those of you who don't know about us, Beaches Watch has served the beach communities since 2004. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan civic organization whose mission is to promote and facilitate educated and productive citizen involvement in government decisions that impact the quality of our beaches communities. We are a membership-based organization, and when you join Beaches Watch, you help support candidate forums such as this one, the Fletcher High School Flan Sharp Memorial Scholarship, our Give Back Award, and our Friend of the Beaches Award. So please consider joining or renewing your membership tonight. Thank you. This forum is being videotaped and will be available on our website tomorrow. And so we ask that you share the video so those who cannot make it this evening will have an opportunity to watch the forum before Election Day. Now, I do have ground rules for the forum. So each candidate will be asked the same question, and each will answer on a rotational basis. So one no candidate is always answering first or last. Each candidate will be given 30 seconds to answer the opening and closing questions, time permitting, on the closing question. All other questions will be allowed a 90-second response time. Our timekeeper, Steve Pescatelli, please stand, Steve. He has the time cards. He will hold up a 30-second and a time is up card. Once the time is up card, he will ring the bell to know your time is up. We will allow you to finish your sentence, though, and not cut you off in the middle of a statement. Due to the number of candidates, there will be no allotted time for any rebuttal. However, you are welcome to rebut any statement in your allotted time. Audience rules. We ask that you refrain from cheering or jeering or otherwise making any other outburst so that each candidate has their fully allotted time to answer the questions. We will applaud at the beginning of the forum and at the end. So I will now introduce the candidates. Beginning with Dr. Omega Allen. Do you want to stand or not? You can stand. Ms. LeAnna Gutierrez Cumber. Woo! Excuse me. My bad. You're bad. First warning. Mr. Daniel Davis, Ms. Donna Deegan, Mr. Ferraro. We are awaiting Ms. Gibson, who did RSVP, so she may be stuck in traffic. Mr. Brian Griffin, and least but not last, Mr. Frank Keasler. You may applaud the audience. We will turn this over to our moderator, Bill Gulliford.
Thank you, Maria. Good evening also. Before I start, I want everyone in the interest of neutrality, acting as moderator and helping with these questions. I've pledged not to publicly support or endorse any mayoral candidate in the primary election. I too want to thank each of the candidates for showing your interest in the beaches and being here tonight. Since 1967, there has been a misunderstanding as to who the beaches are. We are not just another neighborhood in Jacksonville. We are three distinct, legally created municipal corporations, and Jacksonville serves as our county. Nothing more and nothing less. We hope that whomever ultimately wins this election will foster a strong relationship with the beaches governments and move in a positive direction to help the beaches with adequate and fair county services. So let's begin with opening statements with a 30-second limit, beginning with Dr. Allen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having me. I am Dr. Omega Allen. I'm a native of Jacksonville. I hold an earned PhD in public administration with a focus on municipal government, focusing also on participatory government, where you, the citizens, have an opportunity to participate in the decision-making processes that govern our lives. Thank you again for being here, and I look forward to answering your questions this evening.
Thank you. I'm LeAnna Cumber, and thank you for all taking time out of your evening to come and hear us all. I am a former school teacher, a lawyer, and now I run a transportation financing consulting firm. And I love the beaches. I recognize many of you from having spent a lot of time out here at the beaches, and want to confer with Councilmember Gulliford that we have 5 mayors in this city. The mayor of Jacksonville acts as your county mayor, and the mayor really needs to respect the, oh, my time is up. I look forward to answering all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Davis, and I'm honored to be here tonight. I had the opportunity to serve Jacksonville at a young age. I was on the city council for 8 years, and I've held every leadership spot in City Hall except for mayor. I had the opportunity to lead in the state legislature and understand the importance of the relationship between City Hall and the Capitol and infrastructure funding, and how important that is for not only Jacksonville but the beaches. But I've also had the opportunity for the last 10 years to lead as the CEO of the Jacks Chamber, leading our business community, creating 30,000 jobs over 10 years. And I'm honored to be here. I'll be ready to hit the ground running day one.
Good evening, my name is Donna Deegan. I am a proud Jacksonville native. I spent 25 years as an evening news anchor on First Coast News, where I spent a lot of time in the neighborhoods, listening to folks, hearing their issues. After I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I started the Donna Foundation and a race that runs through many of your neighborhoods to raise money for underserved people who have breast cancer. I am excited to bring my vision to Jacksonville. I'm excited to help solve problems, to bring what I have created, not only here, but elsewhere to bear in Jacksonville so that we can have a city that works for all of us. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Al Ferraro. I'm a businessman who's been in business for over 38 years. I've been married to my beautiful wife over here for 33 years this May. I am a city councilman in District 2. I am not happy to see the way our city is going right now. I've had a lot of people get behind me and ask me to run for mayor, to do the same things I've done in District 2, and I'm looking forward to your support and your vote. Thank you for coming out.
Good evening, everyone. I am Audrey Gibson, recently your state senator, and prior to being state senator for 10 years plus, actually longer, because I won in 2011 plus two extra terms because I won the special, and also I got 2 during reapportionment. Also served in the Florida House my full term from 2002 to 2010. And so I'm ready from day one. I have a budget experience. I've been in the community, not visiting the community, and showing up after when there were needs. And I would like your vote, and I look forward to talking to you later. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Brian Griffin. I'm the write-in candidate, no party affiliation, and no party affiliation and fiscal conservative. I'm grassroots, so I have no special interest or party politics that will affect my decisions, so I can work and keep my promises to all Jacksonville residents. Thank you.
My name is Frank Keasler, and I'm home. I used to sell popcorn and Cokes right here. I did it for one weekend, and I saw all my buddies leave, and their girlfriends, and I was leaving $2 on all the popcorn I could eat. And I said, no, I'm going to change this job. But it's great to be here. I'm from the beach. I've never run for office. Unlike anybody at this table, I'm not running for the mayor of Jacksonville or the office of mayor of Jacksonville. It's a calling I could not run from. I am here to deliver a message of an awakening building together, a city of people with their heads lifted each time we got our heads up, people, and took note of our nation and took note of each other.
Well, thank you all. Let's start with the first question. Mrs. Cumber, what is your understanding of the top issues currently facing the beaches communities, and what would you do to address them as the beaches county government?
Thank you for that question. So I think one of the top issues is re-looking at the interlocal agreement and making sure that the beaches get fair share of tax dollars and support, not just support for infrastructure, although there are a lot of infrastructure needs to withstand to support the development. Also support for, everything. The sheriff's office supports your great police departments. We need to relook at that interlocal agreement, open it up. I said earlier today, I was talking to someone and I said anything that was typewritten probably needs to be relooked at this point. So I think that's, and then infrastructure and of course resiliency and flooding, both the intercoastal flooding and the beach renourishment. So these are issues that we really need to focus on, and because the beach has really gone from decades ago to being more of a summer community, to being an year-round community where people are continuously moving in, we need to make sure that your infrastructure can withstand what's happening, and also make sure that we keep the character of the beach and that the character of what we have now sustains and it doesn't turn into a Fort Lauderdale or so forth where we wouldn't recognize it. So I think that those are the top issues.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
So I think the beach is a job creator. I love the fact that we have the opportunity to sell Jacksonville based on all the natural resources we have. And we all have to remember that. And we have to remember, and it's important to remember as the Jacksonville mayor, that the beaches love their autonomy. They love to make their decisions. And as mayor, I'm gonna make sure that I stand side by side with you, and I'll try to do anything other than support what you would like to see out here in this community. I do think there are real issues, and since I've talked to many of the leaders here in this community, there are real issues with the concern of double taxation. And when I am mayor of Jacksonville, I can tell you this: we will have a less size of government. We will make sure more officers are on the street. We will make sure more infrastructure is in place to make sure you have resiliency. You have the road works that you need. You have the safety that you need on the walkways. But we will make sure that at the end of the day, we're working together and there will not be double taxation on any issue.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan.
Thank you. Well, I have been a proud resident of the beaches, I think since 1987. And it's been actually wonderful to see the beaches lead on so many issues that Jacksonville proper continues to struggle with. We have led on a lot of these resiliency issues and put things in place. Gosh, where I'm living, I started out in Jacksonville Beach and ended up in Atlantic Beach. And what has been done in Atlantic Beach in terms of resiliency, and really some of the things we've done in the other beaches too, has really set the tone for some of the things that we need to be doing overall. But obviously our beaches are the most vulnerable. You know, if we are worrying about resiliency for our rivers and we're not worrying about resiliency for our beaches, you know, this is our first line of defense. We really need to make sure that we are continuing to invest and making sure we're bringing down all those federal dollars that we can to make sure that we are as resilient as we possibly can be. And those are available right now. Also, I will say that in talking to the leaders of these communities out here, I will say the biggest frustration I have heard is there's just not good communication between the city of Jacksonville and the beaches communities. There's not a lot of collaboration there. So that's where the frustration comes in. I don't know about redoing the interlocal agreement and talking to our mayors out here. That's fraught with a lot of different challenges, but I do know that we need to open those lines of communication and make sure that we are creating the best return for tax dollars for the folks out here. We have a big tax base out here, and people need to get their tax dollars worth.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
Thank you, Mr. Gulliford. The interlocal agreement is one of the things. The beaches is very similar to Baldwin, where you have a separate city. And people don't feel like they're being represented excuse me, on either side. So our core functions, you know, our roads, our infrastructure, the drainage. What's neat about the district that I represent is I have the beaches just north of us all the way to the county line. So resilience is a big, big deal that we have out in our area. Just the same thing that's happening out here at the beaches. The difference is you got a lot more people out here than we do over in the parks area. So resiliency, core functions. We also have a problem with people that are out here that come from the other parts of the city and use this as a playground. So crime's a problem, as it is in other parts of the city. So these are all things that I'll be addressing, core functions, safety, resiliency, and looking over the inner agreement that we have. Thank you.
Ms. Gibson, where'd you park? Neptune Beach?
I'll talk to you after.
Okay.
Thank you. So I've heard the talk about the interlocal agreement, and I believe that anytime you have an agreement that involves services and dollars, that there is some point that you must revisit what that agreement looks like and whether or not the community that is in partnership with the other community is delivering on its promises and the needs have not changed, or if they have changed, we have to address it in that way. The other thing, as a part of the legislature, of course, we put money in the budget for, guess what? Sand dunes that help every year to refurbish those dunes to function in a resilient manner. The other thing that I can talk to you about is when the Jack's Beaches, I won't say their name, came to me about a drainage issue that had been plaguing the beach for a number of years. I used my time and my relationships to ensure that that funding for that drainage was needed. Ask somebody, they will tell you it happened because of my relationships with individuals in Tallahassee, and I will use my federal relationships as well to make sure that the beaches is taken care of from a resiliency standpoint. That is extremely important. It's extremely important that the city of Jacksonville revisit any measures that negatively impact you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Griffin.
Well, my priorities are crime, affordable housing, storm readiness and resilience, public housing, and traffic. I feel the storm readiness and resilience is probably one of the most important things because it affects everything else. So I feel that it should be focused, especially on the beach, because it gets so affected by storms. I don't feel that the beaches are being treated fair. I don't feel that you're getting their fair share of the money that they're collected from the people on the beaches, from all of you, and I think that that should be changed. One thing I'll say about storm resilience and readiness is the first couple of interviews I had, I was told I was the only person talking about it, so I guess things have changed.
Thank you. Mr. Keasler.
Well, I moved here in 1960 as a 3-year-old. I remember Hurricane Dora washing out Neptune Beaches, but basically from Atlantic Boulevard to Florida. And this beach has faced forever an issue with drainage. And it's funny how these candidates get up here and talk about this is what I'm going to do for y'all. And y'all know for the last 40 years, mayoral candidates have been coming out here and telling y'all this is what we're going to do for y'all. And you still have streets that flood. You still have issues that when there is a major storm, your 3rd Street becomes a navigable waterway. So the main thing is that you know that I know this beach. And I'll tell you this much, if you want to talk about that fair share agreement being basically a fraud on the people, it's not double taxation. It's just you're not getting your fair share, you're not paying 2 taxes, you're not getting a return on your investment. Because if you look in 1968, what the Avalon base was west of the intercoastal on this island, and it's Avalon base, and how much we contributed, and how much we got back percentage-wise, you'll see it's become a gap that's disproportionate and absolutely frightening how much this island contributes to the Avalon base of Duval County in relation to the amount of money we get from Duval County. So it's time we got our fair share, and candidly, I hope y'all will vote for, the first ever beach rat to occupy the mayor's office.
Thank you, Mr. Keasler. Dr. Allen.
If you had to sum up my candidacy and my upcoming administration with one word, it would be equity. Doing what's needed, where it's needed, when it's needed. That's the way you function in government. My plan would be to work along with the mayors in the beaches area, finding out exactly what your issues are, the things that you want to see happen here. Then with my relationship with the state and federal entities, I would bring the monies home to make sure that we can use those dollars, use the tax dollars from your area, in your area, and then use the federal and state dollars to address the issues that you all have identified as the most pressing issues for here. I believe that for the people, by the people is not just a line from an old historic document. It is the way this nation was designed to be, to run and to function. We are supposed to self-govern. You will have a voice with me as your mayor and working along with the mayor that you have here. I will not only be a voice for the people, but a voice of the people, doing those things that are needful for your area to be comfortable for you and your children and your family.
Thank you, Dr. Allen, and that leads us into our second question. Mr. Davis, in the past, some Jacksonville mayors met with Beaches mayors on a somewhat regular basis to discuss Beaches problems and opportunities. That has not happened in recent years. If you're successful in becoming the next mayor of Jacksonville, how would you improve communication with the Beaches mayors, and would you commit to having at least 2 public meetings a year with the Beaches mayors?
Absolutely, yes. That's a no-brainer. Since I have been CEO of the Jacks Chamber, we have been able to bring all sorts of organizations, community leaders in to convene, people that didn't agree on things, and come out with a solution to significant problems in our community. And that's the way I'll operate as mayor. I'm going to be open to everybody's concern. I'm going to have constant communication with the leaders at the beach. And so it's a no-brainer. Communication solves so many things, and I cannot wait to be a part of that. I will have public meetings. I will have as many meetings as the leaders out here want. That doesn't mean the mayor comes out when they are not wanted. I will listen to the leaders here. I will do what they're asking me to do. I will stand side by side whenever there's a crisis. That's what Duval County should be doing. And I'm going to serve you every day. You are going to have an open door, a transparent office, and I think it's going to be incredibly successful.
Thank you. Mrs. Deegan.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that the whole communication piece, as I said earlier, is a big problem. And one of the things that, as I was talking to the Beaches mayors earlier this year, that I think we really could use out here is a liaison between the beach and the mayor's office. We could use a Beaches liaison specifically for that purpose. Now, having said that, I have spent my entire campaign since I first got into this race more than a year ago, spending every week in neighborhoods, talking with people about the problems that exist in those neighborhoods, both out here and all over the city, listening to the concerns of the community. And I think as mayor, that is something that we should all vow to continue to do. We have had a city that has been blocked off from most of us. And I think out here especially, not only are you on an island, you're on an island, right? So it is really important to have that communication and have the mayor continue to come out and have community meetings, but also to bring the Beaches communities into the mayor's office. I think that liaison position could be very, very helpful to us out here. And I think that also, the opinions of the people in these communities and what you need most from the mayor's office is what we need to be listening to. That's what the city of Jacksonville is supposed to be for you. We're supposed to be a problem solver, a partner in solving problems. Although you're autonomous, we need to have that partnership. And I am excited and can't wait to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we need to have open communications with the mayor's office, but we also need to have it with the community. Meetings like this. This is important because you don't want to just hear from the elected officials. I personally want to hear from the everyday people, because there are going to be problems that you have in the neighborhoods. The district I represent is one of the biggest districts in the city of Jacksonville, and not one area is the same. They're all different. It doesn't make it wrong or right. It just makes it different. So you're going to have different problems. There's going to be different issues that come up. So just being part of not just listening to your elected official and the mayors, it's important to listen to the community. So I will do exactly the same thing I've done as a city councilman in the largest district that we have in the city, is going out, listening to community meetings and neighborhoods, and having an open door policy. I get stopped at gas stations, grocery stores, and I find out more of what's happening in the neighborhood in just a short period of time than I do sometimes listening to elected officials. If you're spending time in office buildings, either downtown or in any other areas, you're not going to hear from the community. So I think it's important doing exactly what we're doing here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gibson.
Thank you. Well, having community meetings is nothing new to me. So in my years in the legislature, and remember, I have to remind people that I actually lived in Jacksonville, and some people think that the legislature is like Congress. So I've met not only many organizations and communities in Tallahassee, but also in Jacksonville, where I've had community meetings, particularly as it relates to crime, also as it relates to Riverfront Parks Now. I did a Zoom community meeting, and so it's not hard for me to then transition to being a mayor that comes into the community on a regular basis. I believe that I should have meetings at least 2 or 3 times a year with the entire community. What's happening in Jacksonville and in the beaches area is meetings are held when people are hardworking, people are working. So they can't come to the meeting to express themselves. The same people are at the table over and over and over again. I want the community at the table. I want to hear your ideas and your concerns personally and directly. Our neighborhood coordinators should be coming out as well, getting issues from those of you in beach communities. So I'm no stranger to bringing people together. I'm no stranger to organizing community meetings. I will be accessible as well, and I look forward as mayor to planning at least 3 meetings a year where the doors of the office is open and ordinary, everyday, hardworking people can come and visit and talk, have mayor meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
Well, I'm in it for everybody. I feel like Jacksonville Beach is no different than the rest of Jacksonville, and everybody should be represented and served equally. I feel like 2 meetings a year seems kind of low. It seems like a second thought, basically. Have an open forum for any residents to get a hold of me directly. If you need me out here once a month, I'll be out here once a month. Whatever you need, I'm here for the residents and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keasler.
You know, I find it strange in some of these surveys we take, there's the question asked of what's your opinion on access to city records by the people of Jacksonville? I'm like dumbfounded. They're your records. Why would there be a question? What corporation has a division that's one of the highest performing divisions in the market and in their footprint? And the division chief has a tough time getting to the CEO. I mean, he's got him on speed dial. The beaches contribute a disproportionate amount of income to Duval County. We ought to be, the mayor ought to be, again, on speed dial with every mayor out here. But I'll tell you this, once a month for the first year, I'll be out here and I'll sit and I'll call a meeting and we'll have a meeting at any place you want to have a meeting. This is my hometown. Our family's been here almost 100 years and been on this beach for 60. I still have a sister that lives on this beach. So again, I've grown up seeing this beach going from when I was 15, 13, 14 years old. We rode up and down 3rd Street at 8 o'clock on Friday night and rode an 8, design 8, if you will, figure 8, between the north and southbound lanes and never saw a car. That's a fact. And today, when we moved here in 1960, there was about 15,000 people on the island. There's north of 100, and I think 30,000 now. Imagine what that does. I'm sorry I didn't see the sign.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Allen.
Communication is key. Excuse me. And all things rest on relationship. So an open communication with the mayor here and the other beaches, open communication with you, the citizens, through an open door policy that you will be able to voice your concerns with me. Those are the things that I'm willing and prepared to do as mayor of Jacksonville. I will have a staff that is dedicated, a portion of my staff will be dedicated to the participatory process, making sure that not special people but any people who are interested in having their voices heard and voicing the concerns of your community have an opportunity to do that. My commitment to you is not just twice a year, but however your leadership and your communities feel we need to come together, however many times we need to come together to solve the issues that you all are having, that's what I'm committed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cumber.
Thank you. It's obviously very critical that the mayor, the Jacksonville mayor, have meetings with the mayors of the beaches and have set meetings and frequent meetings throughout the year. It's also important that the mayor have those relationships and personal relationships with the commissioners, because it's not just in all of the elected officials here at the beaches. So having those, it shouldn't just be a 2 times a year we'll have public meetings with the mayors, but continuous communication, but also friendships and coming out and really finding out what's going on at the beaches during the course of the whole year. There has been a big, and I think it's contemplated in your question, that there's been a disconnect between City Hall and the rest of the city and the rest of the elected officials. And if we're really going to move forward and do what's best for the city at large and do what's best for the beaches, then we need to make sure that that communication is there and that disconnect no longer exists.
Thank you. Quick announcement. White Jeep Grand Cherokee with South Carolina plates at the side of the building. You're blocking cars in. Now look, we'll all look the other way in case you want to stand. Anybody here? Okay, well, I guess we took care of that. Let's talk about Mayport Village. Ms. Deegan, Mayport Waterfront Partnership is a state-recognized 501c3 corporation and is dedicated to the development of 7 acres of riverfront property owned by the City of Jacksonville. Mayport Waterfront Partnership received money from the City of Jacksonville in this year's budget to plan and restore the development as a working waterfront. Would you be willing to give site control to the Mayport Waterfront Partnership to seek development of the riverfront subject to final approval of the City Council, and would you accelerate money being added to the CIP for Mayport's commercial docks?
Well, obviously, Mayport is a historic area that has really been autonomous for a long time. And I think it's very, very important that we continue to support that area. I certainly would be willing to take a look at giving control to the MWP to seek development of the riverfront. I think that it would require some discussion and negotiation, but I certainly would be willing to take a look at it.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
Thank you, Mr. Gulliford. So I took part in actually getting some of the docks out there for the Osage vessels and Waterways Commission. So I think it's really important to keep areas of town true to their beginnings out there. So Mayport Village is its own little entity inside the Jacksonville area. So I would be interested in exploring that. I wouldn't say yes to just try to pander to people, but it is important, and I think local control is probably the best. So that would be something I'd be open to. Thank you.
Ms. Gibson.
Thank you. If the riverfront development is important to the community in Mayport, it's important to me also as mayor. And so we can obviously have a planning sessions to make sure it ends up in the way that those individuals in Mayport would want that to happen. Waterfronts and the economic development that is created in the capacity of what happens along that riverfront is extremely important to the entirety of the community. And whatever assistance that the city of Jacksonville would need to provide, I definitely believe that we should look at. We're activating Jacksonville's waterfront. That's with Riverfront 2025. If you missed it, it's great. So why should we not make sure that other communities that are along with us, right, have the same opportunity to do that and create economic development in their in their area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
Well, I really don't know a whole lot about this, so I can't give you a definite answer. But if it's what the majority or most of the residents want, that's what I'd go for, I guess. I'm here to represent you, not me. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keasler?
Well, again, I grew up hanging out with the Coopers and the Jacksons in Mayport Village, and ate for a lifetime at Strickland's and Parsons, and rode the ferry as a kid. I'm gonna tell you this much, that's one of the greatest assets in North Florida. It's the last working ferry in Mayport Fishing Village in the state. No matter what it takes as a mayor, I'll make certain with the, working with our federal, congressional delegation and our Duval state legislative body or group, that we always make sure we have funding to keep that ferry alive. And to answer the question, as long as the city has the ability to give final blessing to how the money's spent and what is being built without being, obstinate to the idea and being reasonable in their decisions, then I say we let the locals say what they want. It's where you're gonna live, it's where you're gonna drive, and again, it's the way you're gonna communicate up A1A if you wanna head to Amelia Island. And so I think it's always been a valuable destination point for people at the beach. We've always, looked at Mayport as a place to go out to. And I think it needs to be, really rehabbed and brought up to modern standards and become an icon in North Florida.
Thank you, Dr. Allen.
You asked if would I be willing to give site control? Absolutely. But you always want to inspect what you expect. So site control with oversight. And the reason for that is not that we don't trust what you do, but we want to make sure that you know what's expected so that when we do go to City Council, you have an improved opportunity for approval of the things that you want to have done. As I stated earlier, I will seek state and federal funding that's available. I'll bring home the dollars that are out there, and we will use that for infrastructure, for your docks, and the other things that you all have made known to us that you would like to have happen in your area. That is basically what I would do for this particular part of this question.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Cumber?
Thank you. Mayport Village is really a treasure, and everything from the new community center to, and maybe that's why the question was asked, the new community center to the harbor pilots to everything in between, and having a working waterfront, a redevelopment of a working waterfront out there is really not only is exciting, but it's really critical to continuing the economic development in the area. And so I think that local control is really critical, and I think the idea is fantastic. And the more we can do to really rehabilitate Mayport and really create and redevelop that working waterfront, I think it's just such an asset to the entire city.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
I think first of all, everyone in this room recognizes the debt of gratitude they have to Bill Gulliver for his service in Jacksonville Beach, but also in Mayport Village. And I just want to say that publicly. I think in most cases, public-private partnerships are much more efficient than what government can do. And I would tell you, on my time on the city council, the city was in charge of selling and developing the former Navy base, Cecil Field. And nothing ever happened because you had a city employee who was not receiving a commission and they were receiving a paycheck, and the momentum never took shape. We were able to create a public-private partnership with a very successful development company, and because of that, thousands of people are working out there replacing the Navy base after it left. We have a golf course, actually, that the city owns out on the west side. The exact same principle comes into play. It was not functioning like it should because government just doesn't do as well as the private sector does. And so we created a memo and a deal with a company to come in and lease the golf course, provide the services that were needed, and it's much better today. And in my opinion, yes, this is exactly something we should do. Mayport Village will do much better at taking care of this piece of property than government ever would. So it's an emphatic yes.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro, Penman Road is a heavily utilized roadway by all the beach's communities and has a myriad of problems from traffic flow to pedestrian and bicycle safety. Because Penman Road is a Jacksonville roadway, what is your plan to ensure the proper resources are dedicated to improve Penman Road and make it safer for everyone?
I'm really glad you're getting to some of these questions. So this is exactly what city government is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be protecting its citizens, but it's also supposed to be providing for things that we can't do as citizens. We're supposed to have widening roads, and actually with the gas tax, this should be taken care of. So the road should be widened. It should have, it should be widened enough to where people can walk along safely. It should be paved correctly. We shouldn't be having the potholes. Listen, our city has a huge amount of money. We have a spending problem, and right now we're spending them on the wrong things. We're not spending on our core functions. So not just Penman Road, but all our roads, all our city streets and ditches. They should be cleaned out. And so as a mayor, I'm going to make sure that this is happening. We've got dollars going in the wrong areas. We've got people who are working to get our dollars away from our core functions. Some of them sitting at this table, and it is really important to make sure that our money is in the place that it's supposed to be. So core functions, safety, these are really important things. As your mayor, I will make sure that the money that's supposed to be going into our roads and infrastructure stay there. So I would definitely be looking at this along with other roads in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gibson.
Thank you. As a member of the Transportation and Economic Development and Appropriations Committee and Tourism Development Committee, which is where all of our funding lies in the state for road projects and things like that under DOT. So I believe that it's important, number one, to make sure that we have a list of the projects. So the gas tax list that I've seen is not prioritized in any particular manner. So I don't even know where Penman Road, if it's even on the list, where it sits on the list. And so when we talk about the gas tax, first and foremost, some people are paying more for more of the money and the taxes because of the promises of consolidation that were not kept, right? And gas costs different, in case you didn't know, gas costs different per gallon in different parts of town. And so all of the road projects that need to be prioritized should be done sooner rather than later. That's my plan as mayor, because I believe in the end, some people are going to be left behind. Some roads and ditches and drainage is going to be left behind because the list is not prioritized by community. It may be prioritized by what other people want, but not by community. And electric vehicles are going to play a role in how much we're going to be able to collect to put in the pot. These are considerations that we need to think about, and I will do that as mayor and include Penman Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
Well, I feel like highways or roads, any kind of roads in Jacksonville are very important, and we should find solutions that make them safer. With all of our hit and runs you hear on the news lately, it's very important, it seems, to make the roads better in any way you can. So investment in that would definitely be a positive. I feel, just to let you know how I feel about the beach, or the beaches, I feel they're more important than the Jaguars, and I feel the Jaguars are very important. So everything we can do to keep, make everything better here for everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Keasler.
In the last 50 years, as government has grown, so has the time between appropriation and letting the contract. In 1997, the City Council approved the widening of San Pablo, and funding was applied and appropriated. They just started it last year. That ought to make y'all sick. So there's two answers to our infrastructure issue. Penman Road being the main north-south corridor, if you will, and the last western corridor on the island, is relative to other corridors in other parts of the city and all of our corridors. It's how we use them. We've got to be better. at how we use our existing infrastructure from a cadence and a signal synchronization. We've got to get out of this culture of stop and go, go and stop and go traffic. So Penman Road needs to be 5-lane for certain 4. We just need to make sure that we get a beach mayor in there so that when the money's appropriated, we'll go right away and start paving that road. We don't want to be sitting here in 2043 going, finally, Penman Road's getting paved. So, widened. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Allen.
Your question was, what would my plan be to ensure that proper resources are dedicated for the improvement? The most efficient way to make sure that the proper resources are available is through what's called rebudgeting. Rebudgeting is when you reassess your budget at some point, some predetermined point in the year, to determine where the dollars are being used and whether or not they're being used effectively. Once you do that, you find funds that you inevitably will find funds that are not being used properly, then we are not serving the purpose that they were designed to. So at that point, we reallocate those funds and make sure that we have sufficient bike lanes with proper markings, sufficient marked areas for pedestrians. But the way that's done and the way that I will ensure that is through a regular rebudgeting process.
Thank you. Ms. Cumber.
Thank you. It is critical that we make sure that the Complete Streets project at Penman Road is completed and that we have the funds for doing that. And as a mom of a 9 and 11-year-old, I know that pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, it's really critical to the quality of life for all the residents out here. Now, for my consulting firm does exactly this. I work to get, and I've got about $250 million across over the last 10 years for projects, infrastructure projects around the country. And so what we need to do is make sure that Penman is funded and then supplement the rest of all of our infrastructure needs with leveraging our federal and our state dollars.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Home rule, home rule, home rule. That's what we should be talking about right now. And I would tell you this, I know that Penman Road's in the CIP for years out. I would be willing to move it up if that's what the community here wants. And the county should not be telling you what this road should look like. It should be the community involved with that. And the city/county should be the one standing next to you to make sure that we execute those plans. So what you're gonna get from me as the mayor is someone who stands beside you and helps you solve the problems, create safety, and home rule is gonna play in that role.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan.
Oh gosh, I couldn't agree more about home rule. It seems like we don't have hardly any of that anymore. It seems like the state has decided that we don't need a whole lot of home rule these days, but I couldn't agree with you more. I think home rule is incredibly important. As far as Penman Road is concerned, probably in talking to residents out here, it is probably the #1 frustration I have heard from folks outside of the lack of communication from the city of Jacksonville. Penman Road has been on the drawing board forever. The Complete Streets project there just needs to be done. It is a dangerous road. It has been in the planning phases, well, really the planning phases are done. But this is a microcosm of the rut we find ourselves in the city of Jacksonville. How many times have you heard of projects like this? Over and over and over again. It takes years upon years to bring projects that are needed for safety of the community, projects that have been promised, to fruition. We've got to have a more responsive city government, and we've got to make good on our promises when we make them. Whether they were promises made from consolidation 60 years ago, which have still gone unfulfilled, or whether they're promises that we have made to cities about safe and complete streets. This project needs to get done, and it will get funded under a Donna Deegan administration.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Gibson.
Yes.
The 1982 interlocal agreement broadly outlines county services Jacksonville is required to provide to the beaches. Even though beach taxpayers pay 8.1 mils for county services, some services provided are inadequate. Animal control, for instance, was so inadequate many years ago, the beach cities were forced to hire their own animal control officers. With your understanding of the beach's interlocal agreements, what services provided by Jacksonville would you want to review and why?
Thank you. And I said earlier that any interlocal agreement should be reviewed over time for changes in circumstances. And so, and that's what we do with contracts in general, which interlocal agreement is basically a contract. So if every single one of the issues contained in this question need to be reviewed, then that is what we should do as Duval County, as the mayor, and as the agreements between the beaches exist. There is no reason not to do that. What needs to be changed should be changed based on the funds that are being collected from the beaches area and what the agreement is to do the jobs or the duties that are in the agreement in itself. And so it's not any different from any other contract as far as I'm concerned. The contract is for specific services, and the entity that is supposed to provide the services should do their due diligence and do what they said they were going to do, including whatever is contained within the dollars that the taxpayers are paying. It's taxpayer dollars, it's not individual dollars, and the expectation is that Duval County will perform as the interlocal agreement suggests.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
From what I've read about the agreement, it sounds like nothing's fair out here as far as the money. So I would say we should review everything. I mean, it makes sense to check it all out, see what's right and what's wrong for everybody out here. That's it.
Mr. Keasler.
Well, you heard me say earlier that the graph and the line that disproportionately tracks the amount of ad valorem basin contribution to the city budget and what we get out of it is radically disproportionate. And as I hear this, I think about the fact that during the same period of time, I moved to Ponte Vedra in 1991. At that time, Pittman Road was a 3-lane road, and it was bumper to bumper in morning traffic and afternoon traffic from Beach to Atlanta. That 2.5-mile stretch was bumper to bumper then. Gate Parkway has been made into a 6-lane corridor. Bay Meadows is a 6-lane road from 95 Phillips Highway all the way from San Jose, a 4-lane at least. Isn't it funny how the right zip codes got all the money in the last 30 years? And we didn't. I'll leave you with this. My daddy used to say, don't invite me to the berry picking contest and ask me to bring the berries. Aren't y'all tired of bringing all the berries to the berry picking contest?
Thank you, sir. Dr. Allen. You want a minute to get composed?
Do I need to explain that metaphor? I'll just keep, his last words were, I'll just keep my berries.
Okay.
Don't start the clock yet.
And I did not.
What I'll do is review what's currently happening, what's currently being done, and what's not being done. Determine what the needs are. Once we do that, then the question was, why? First we were asked, what would I review? Review the whole setup. What's already promised, what's happening, what's not happening. Why? Because functioning equitably is the only way to make sure that we meet the needs, doing what's needed, when it's needed, where it's needed, with the input from the people of this area.
Thank you. Ms. Cumber.
Thank you. So in specific to the services, we're really looking at trash pickup, animal control, lifeguard, and beach cleanup. And so I think that as we look at it, and as mayors, I work with the beaches mayors to go through those services to make sure, see what needs to be fixed, whether it's the double taxation on the trash pickup, the issue with animal control, and maybe there's things in there that have survived the old typewriter, and we just want to keep it the same. But I think that, as far as services and the interlocal agreements, those are the three that tend to be consistent throughout, and those are the three that we need to look at to see whether there need to be fixes, tweaks, or whether we need to keep them the same. But I would definitely work with the mayors and all of the elected officials at the beach to come to an agreement on that.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Just so you know a little bit about me, I'm a small government person. I think government should be smaller, not bigger. I think more money should be out on the streets, hiring more police officers, putting more money into infrastructure, and that's what I'm going to do as your next mayor. These issues in the interlocal agreement, I think the more I learn, the more I realize there are things in here that just aren't fair to you. Regarding trash pickup, it's the tipping fee for residents isn't fair. I would be willing to rectify that. As mayor, I'm going to get more money on the streets to make sure that the services that the city promised to provide you will happen. And so I want to make sure that we get a chance to know each other tonight and you understand my philosophy of what government should be. Government at City Hall should be smaller. The dollars that you invest in your community should go right back to your streets. And that's what I will do as your next mayor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Deegan.
Yeah, I'm probably going to sound a little like a broken record on this one. I think that the trash pickup is probably another big frustration out here. The double taxation issue on trash pickup is a big deal to people. We have badly mismanaged for years and years our trash pickup in the city of Jacksonville, and the beaches are paying the price for that. So I think that, above all the other issues in the interlocal agreement at this point, needs to be fixed. There's a lot that our city could learn from the way our beaches communities run.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
Thank you. Let me tell you what, it's not happening. You're not a priority. To put it down simple, it's not a priority, and that's why it hasn't been getting done. And when you talk about roads and infrastructure on your state, your city roads, that's what you're paying for, and you're not getting it. So, as a mayor, I want to make sure that this is happening, and what's happening is priorities getting switched around. When your roads are put down, and I was the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities chairman for many years on the city of Jacksonville, and what happens is sometimes they take that money and they move it politically or for some other reasons that they're doing a development, and they take that money that was allocated to something like your roads, and they put it towards something else. This is something I've watched over and over again. As your mayor, when something like that happens, I'll stop it. Because this is happening all through our city. It's not just at the beaches, it's all through our city. And you have people who are taking little bits and pieces off of every project that's coming through. And I'll stop this. Like I said earlier, we don't have a money issue. We have a priority issue and a spending problem. And we need to do our core functions of the garbage pickup, and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people, not just in the beaches area, that they don't feel like they're getting what they're paying for. And I'll make sure that happens as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin, with the passage of, and I might add, the imposition of the 2016 pension sales tax, the beaches will also be paying to reduce the JSO pension liability, although we already pay for our own police pensions. With the budget process, will you commit to working with the beach municipalities to assure the general fund is not used in a way that will double tax us in the future for the services we already pay for, like garbage fees and pension reform? Please explain your answer.
Oh, absolutely. If you're being charged for something you're not receiving, you're being ripped off. So, absolutely, I would. Anything to make it right for everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Keasler.
Can I have his excess time or his leftover time? That's a hard question.
You wanted to tell us more about berries?
No, I don't want to lose the crowd. That's a bad thing for a politician to do. Look, we have a problem with the pension because we kicked the can down the road for 40 years. Do we need more police officers? Yes. Do we need a different police officer, a different safety officer in the 21st century? Absolutely. In 90 seconds, I cannot give you the vision for a 21st century sentinel safety net and creating in Jacksonville the first ever college of sentinel science, technology, operations, and procedures. So I will say this. For the last 30 years, our garbage program, particularly the recycling program in Duval County, has been a fraud. All we've done is package it up and ship it across the seas. The reason why we have a problem today is because Singapore, Malaysia, and China said no more. And so when your garbage is picked up today, you're recycling in blue bins. It's actually just going in a landfill. So we need to look at the truth, and none of these people ever told you that. And I'm going to be real transparent. It's really funny. Somebody asked me the other day, what does transparency look like in the Keasler administration? It's a man that gives you the same answer every time you ask him the question. You'll never hear from me a statement, a position, a frank comment about where we are, and I'll change my opinion because this is the message I've been given. We have to get transparent in government. We have to look at new ways of doing things. And it's time the beaches really got a clear look at Duval County's budget. Time is up even.
Thank you. Dr. Allen.
I have already identified and selected a masterful budgeting committee, some of the smartest people in the area, to oversee the general fund, to make sure that there is not double taxation, not just at the beaches, but in Jacksonville. We all want to be treated fairly. And I think that the budgets for Jacksonville as well as the budgets for the beaches need to be rebudgeted, revamped, and used, have those funds reallocated and used to the best benefit for the people of Jacksonville and the people of the beaches. So that's exactly what I expect to do. Looking at the garbage fees, looking at all of the fees that have been set before us. We need to go back into it, let those who are masters at their craft determine exactly where the shortfalls are and what can be done, and then utilize those dollars to make sure that we set the record straight.
Thank you. Ms. Cumber.
Thank you. Look, nobody should be double taxed. And it's why I fought against every tax that I have been on council that has been passed, most notably the doubling of the gas tax. Now it should be double taxed because when the government taxes you, what the government's really saying is, I want you to work harder. That's what the government's telling you. And so we need to, I am definitely committed to working with the beach municipalities to help resolve this issue, because again, nobody should be double taxed, and this is something that is a serious issue out here, and we need to absolutely resolve it. And I do want to say too that the beaches have amazing police departments, and so we need to recognize that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
I will commit to work with the beaches municipalities to ensure the general fund does not double tax you. Very clear. I think there's a bigger picture here, and that is public safety and law enforcement is by far the #1 issue in the city of Jacksonville. We have got to be able to recruit and retain the very best so we can keep you safe. Government loses its way. The entire purpose for government is to keep you safe and to provide infrastructure so you can move goods and services. And when we get off track, it leads everybody in the wrong direction. And that's what I'm going to do, is get us back on track. I've been endorsed by Sheriff Waters. I've been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. I will be the law enforcement mayor in Jacksonville. And all I want to do is make sure that we're recruiting the best, or retaining the best. You're not going to be double taxed. When we put the money in the right place, we will be able to attract the very best to keep you safe.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan.
Well, certainly I can commit to working with the beaches mayors to make sure that the beaches are not double taxed. That's an easy part of that answer. As far as the pension situation is concerned, that's a mess. That's a mess. And it's a mess because we have failed to manage that properly over the past many decades. We have pretended sometimes that we just don't need to chip into the pension, and to the point where at the end of the day, the solution was to blow up the pension and to go to a 401k plan for our police and fire, which sounds great when you're 20 years old, but not so great when you're 50. And so now what we're hearing is we're having the police and the fire folks come back to us and say, gosh, would you consider going back to a defined benefit? Well, gosh, people just voted in 2016 to go to this other plan. But we want the best and the brightest. So if it's something that we have to and want to consider, this is going to become a problem all over again. But it would not have been a problem to begin with had we strategically planned and had we funded things the way they should have been funded without regard to political expediency. And that is what I can promise you. When I am the mayor of Jacksonville, I will put you first and not political expediency first. But I can tell you, yes, indeed, I will work with the mayors of this city to make sure you're not double taxed.
Mr. Ferraro.
Thank you. Short answer is yes, I would work with, that's a given. But you have to understand how we got into this problem. How did we get into the pension problem? Because if you don't understand how we got into it, we're going to get into it again. They raided the pension fund. That's how we got into the problem. They took the money, the government took the money and they spent it on something else. And they said, oh, we'll pay you back. And then when it came time to pay it back, it didn't get paid back. They put an IOU, I'll pay it back, I'll pay it back. That's how it grew and got out of hand. Okay, I wasn't sitting on council when that happened. Okay, we went to go ahead and fix this, but we did a temporary fix. We have to do something better to bring back to where we don't have a revolving door where we're training police officers and every 4 years they're going to a different department. And oh, by the way, we also have that with our fire department, and we've got to watch out, we're going to have that problem with our JEA as well. So we're going to have this coming down the line, and if we don't take care of it now, along with our garbage, remember when garbage was picked up, we had under 1 million people at one time, and we had 4 sites, and we have 1 site on the west side of town. So we have to relook at a whole bunch of things, otherwise we're going to get hit with a gigantic bill that's going to come due that we're going to have to pay for. So if you put me in office, I'm going to watch over these things, and I know where the money is. Thank you.
Ms. Gibson, you're smiling.
Thank you. He knows where the money is, so I want to know where the outlay is. Certainly, the pension debt is the largest debt in our budget in the city of Jacksonville. How we handle not only the debt and how we handle the payment into the pension program with the beaches communities is a critical concern. The other part of the issue is when was the beaches area start to be included in terms of the pension for law enforcement, and whether or not there are services that Jacksonville's law enforcement continue to provide that would then ultimately be necessary to make sure that a portion of those pensions come from the service area. If there is none of that provided and if there's no services provided from the JSO, then of course you should not be charged for it and charged for the pension portion. So I'm certainly available and ready to discuss that issue and look at whether or not there are any law enforcement services provided in any way that would necessitate the inclusion of a portion of the pension for all officers. And I think there's something in here about garbage fees as well. Well, I'll talk to you later about it.
Thanks. And while y'all were talking about garbage, by the way, when I was the mayor of Atlantic Beach many years ago, we picked up our residents' garbage 6 times a week. Maybe I should be running for mayor. Thanks. Mr. Keasler, spring and summer holidays, especially July 4th, bring a great number of people to the beaches, straining the resources of all three communities. It's been estimated that 80% of the people arrested at the beaches do not live at the beaches. What suggestions do you have for Jacksonville to assist the communities in shouldering that burden?
Y'all need to do better about who you let on this island.
But we're good with that. We'll put up a toll bridge in our
I think people would pay. Regardless what crime is afoot in our county, our whole county deals with it. And it is disproportionate that crime visits, the island. But to answer that question, it goes back to please look at our website and the model that we propose for creating a 21st century sentinel net over Duval County, a whole new approach to the safety net of our community. And I think when you look at that, you can say, look, we can hire more officers to deal with the outcome of a broken world in this modern, messed up society. But the answer lies in not just addressing the symptoms of the problem, but dealing with the roots of the problem. And nothing's going to change until we decide to look at why do we generate this level of crime in our country. And I don't have all the answers, but I do know one thing. As long as we continue to wound early and deeply our children, we're going to continue to fill our prisons. In fact, there are institutions that count on that in this country. That literally are building prisons for tomorrow in the private sector. They're looking at the brokenness and the fallout of the welfare state and the criminal state to be their future residents. We can decide to look at law enforcement and a safety net in a whole new way. I can tell you this, my idea they're doing in Europe now. 20 years ago, I did a project and I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Allen.
My suggestion would be, tourism and holidays generate revenue. But we don't want to generate revenue at all cost. Just as we take care, just as in Jacksonville, we offer special services, and I don't think arresting people is necessarily the end of what needs to be happening. Just as we take an opportunity to provide transportation for those who become a little inebriated, those sorts of things, if we do that, if we offer those same services for all of the activities that happen here, I think we will diminish the number of people who are in position to be arrested, just as they do for the Florida-Georgia game. We can do that for all of the other activities that are happening throughout the county, because Bay Street should not be the panacea for everything that happens that transgresses the law.
Thank you. Ms. Cumber.
Thank you. So first, in the short term, we always need to make sure that during these holidays that our sheriff's office provides any help and assistance that the police departments out here need and would like. So that would be the first thing. Second thing is we really need to get a handle on our crime in the city. And to do that, we need to admit and start addressing that we have a gang problem and aggressively go after it. We are now set to have the second highest homicide rate in 23 years. And when we have a reading level, at-grade reading level at 47% in this county, we can't reduce that crime unless we get a hold of our literacy rates. There are a lot of things that we need to do in order to reduce crime throughout the county, because what happens is, and what you're seeing, and from the question, is the crime starts going throughout the county. And so we really need to focus on reducing the crime, starting to be proactive throughout the county, and not just look at how are we going to do it next year, the year after, but how are we going to do it for the next 10 or 20 years. And so in the short term, we definitely need to make sure that the beaches police departments have all of the support that they need, particularly on these holidays. But then in the long term, we really need to focus on the crime and get a hold of it.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Long term, playing the long game. And education and a job is the best crime fighter you're ever gonna find. Now, in the short term, we have to have law enforcement. We have to have more officers on the street. I have publicly committed to putting more police officers on the street. We've had significant growth in population, and we've capped the amount of officers that are on the street. We have to invest in that. I think JSO's job at the beach is to come alongside the police departments and assist when asked to assist. I will make sure that that takes place. We will make sure that folks in neighborhoods that are crime-ridden by gang violence are not prisoners in their own home. Good, God-fearing people that cannot walk their streets. And if we're not careful, and we don't attack the crime where it is, and those few people that are causing the vast amount of violent crime, if we don't arrest them and put them in jail, it will bleed over into other communities. The beach is relatively safe. We're gonna keep it that way, as long as I'm your mayor. And I would appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you. Mrs. Deegan.
I think JSO does a great job of working with our beaches police departments. I think there's always been a good amount of cooperation there and help. So I don't think that's particularly a problem. I think what we need to start doing more of is looking at the underlying reasons for why we have a violent crime problem. You can't continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. That is, from my understanding, the definition of insanity. So what we need to do is we need to, from the mayor's perspective, obviously we have an elected sheriff, so I only have so much control over this. My levers are largely economic. But I will tell you that I think that back in the day when Nat Glover was sheriff, and we had a community policing model, and we had the Jacksonville Journey, and I'm using the Journey as just an example of what I think would be workable, is you bring all these different levers together. You talk about literacy, you talk about food deserts, you talk about economic prosperity, and you bring all those things to bear. And this was a project in a specific community that was a heavy crime community. And we saw the violent crime numbers drop dramatically. This has to be a situation where we get underneath the causes that are causing violent crime. We cannot just police our way out of this. Yes, we need enough police officers. We must fund them, and we must make sure that we have police officers on the streets. No question. But there are other ways, there are other levers that we must pull. We can't just do the same thing and expect those violent crime numbers to go down, and that will continue to impact us here at the beach.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
Thank you. Summer and spring holidays are not just the problems, and it's not just at the beaches. We have between 3,000 and 4,500 people moving here every 2 weeks. So we have our police that's dwindling because of just how many people are moving here. So we need more police officers. And if we don't have it, we're going to have this problem. Look at just the beaches and how much it's grown with the high rises going up, of the capacity on the roads and things like that. So you go ahead and you think about all the other neighborhoods and homes that are happening throughout the city. We need more police. So how are you going to stop some of the crimes that are happening? It's starting at home. It's the breakdown of the family. It's things that the government can't control, but what we can control is when somebody gets in trouble, that they're going to pay the price for that. And we want to make sure that we have enough room in our jails. We want to make sure that we have enough police on the street, but we also want to do our summer jobs that we have for kids and all these other things. But we got to have consistency throughout the city. When somebody comes here and they come to any part of our city, not just the beaches, that they know that if they break the law, there's going to be consequences. And I think we also need to follow it up with the state attorneys to make sure that when people come down in our neighborhoods and they break the law, they harm us, they do something to us, that there's consequences that happen. As your mayor, I will be bringing that to light. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Ms. Gibson, sorry.
Thank you. And so the question is, what are the crimes being committed? So I have my degree in criminology from the Florida State University, and at the end of, yes, let's do that. At the end of this semester, I will have my master's in public administration from the University of North Florida, of which I'm proud. So those two, plus my experience in the legislature and serving on juvenile justice and criminal justice committees and the appropriations side as well. What needs to happen has more to do with analytics and determining what are the crimes that people are being arrested for. Because you can deploy all the officers that you want. If you don't know where they need to be, then you've really done nothing. And so we need to first figure out where in the beaches are these individuals being arrested? What crimes are they committing? What resources are in that area? And what officers do we need to put in that area? The other thing is, community policing is not, we use it in a general term. My definition of community policing is putting officers in neighborhoods where they grew up or where they have relationships, because you have better outcomes with law enforcement and criminal behavior when that happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson. Excuse me, Mr. Griffin. Well, I'm just picking on you, aren't I?
It's okay.
Jeez, I'm
I can
sorry.
take it, I can take it.
But this question seems to be specific to the beaches or during holidays. So I will say, as far as crime throughout the city, I have some ideas for reducing it along with policing. I think there's a lot of changes we could do in the city to change a lot of the crime that happens. But as far as specific to the beaches, I think that these are holidays that we're encouraging people. It's tourism. We need the money. It's good for the city. But these holidays are holidays that we encourage drinking. I mean, that's what goes on on these holidays. I think the best suggestion I could see is just show of force. Have more police on the streets, more police on the beaches. That'll discourage, even a drunk person thinks, wait a minute, there's a police officer right there. So that would be what I'd say.
Thank you, Mr. Keasler.
Didn't I start this?
Excuse me, I stand corrected.
No, I didn't. I get the answer again.
We're not talking about burials again. Put the mic,
Because I'm from the beach, so
microphone
you do
on.
that to me.
All right, closing statements. Closing statements, we'll start with Dr. Allen.
60 seconds.
This is my third time running for mayor. You may want to know why. I'm glad you asked. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And in Jacksonville, nothing has changed in decades. Change comes with a definitive plan, and I have one. Don't have time to tell you about it all right now, but trust me, I have one. They call me a long shot because I don't have millions. But I am a long shot, not the best shot, the shot for the people of Jacksonville. And when the long shot wins, the payoff is tremendous for everybody. I want you to think about Omega Allen doing what's necessary, when it's necessary, for whom it's necessary, throughout the county, and vote Omega Allen, March 21st. I want to be your mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. The city needs change, and the city wants change. The beaches are beautiful. The beaches are very unique. There's a really interesting and unique character to all three of the beaches, and we need to keep it that way. And your mayor, your county mayor, needs to be laser focused on making sure that the beaches retain the character. And I am asking for your vote to be that county mayor, and I commit to every one of you that I will work incredibly hard every day to make sure that not only is the communication there and so forth, but that the beaches remain as unique as they are today and as beautiful as they are today, and retain the character that all of you moved here for. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. I grew up in Jacksonville, and I've always had a deep desire to serve the people of Jacksonville. When I grew up, we had food on the table, but that was about it. And hardworking, God-fearing family. And my parents taught me what it meant to be close-knit, to work hard, and work harder than anybody else around you so you could succeed. My first job was valet at the Omni Hotel in downtown Jacksonville, and I paid for my rent my freshman year in college, running and getting people's cars. And little by little, I worked harder than everybody around me to where I was given promotions and I was given the opportunity to serve in different areas. Then I was elected and I was given the opportunity to serve as the CEO of the Jacks Chamber. Think about it, starting off as a valet to leading the business community in Jacksonville. And people have asked me what I want to do and why I would want to run. Because I want to give every kid in every neighborhood the same opportunities I've had to see success. And I would ask you for your vote to be mayor so we can make sure that happens for every child in Jacksonville.
Ms. Deegan?
Well, I think you all know that I love this community. I get up every day and I walk down to the beach, and I'm fortunate enough to live out here and take a picture of the sunrise and share it with most of you. I have built my foundation out here, and you have wrapped your arms around the race and the institution that we have built that has helped more than 18,000 families and brought a $60 million economic impact to the city of Jacksonville. I know how to build things. I know how to coalesce people around a vision. I have built something from the ground up that has been all for the underserved people of this community. And I think it's wonderful. We want to build business in this community. It's important. The people who need a voice in this community are the people who have been left behind in this community. And I have always been their voice. I will continue to be their voice, and I will also continue to be an advocate for the community I love. I believe that we are ready for change in this community. 68% of us say it is time for change, and I am ready to be that change for good for Jacksonville. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you so much.
Mr. Ferraro?
Thank you. Change is what we need. We need honesty, we need integrity, we need people who are going to put you as a priority. The meeting that we're having here tonight is not anything different that's happening around the city. People are upset to see that their money that they think is being wasted. They've seen that people were trying to sell your JEA, the one authority that was putting money into our streets, exactly what we were talking about tonight. This is the kind of corruption that's happened in our city that I'm going to get in here and fight. I am tired of what's happening. If you put me in office, I'm going to be watching over your roads, your streets, your infrastructure. I'm going to make sure that they are getting done and that people aren't sticking their hands in the pot trying to get money out where it should be having your roads and infrastructure done. You put me in office and I'm going to be that person that's going to be watching every dollar and making sure that you're getting value for it. Thank you very much for having us, and thanks for coming out.
Ms. Gibson?
Thank you, and thank you all for being here this evening. I've enjoyed my time with you, and so let me just wrap it all up in a bow. I've been serving this community for more than 20 years. Not when I was running for office, but all the time. Legislation, you want to know how does it transfer? Legislation that I filed has come from this community, the concerns in this community. Funding that I brought home for this community in Jacksonville, I've done that. When I talked to the mayors, I met with the mayors too, when I first filed to run for office. And so I understand this community as well as the entirety of Jacksonville. Make me your mayor. It's time for a shift, not just a change. It's time for a shift. We keep electing the different faces with the same philosophy. It's time we did something else to move Jacksonville forward for all people, where all people deserve a good quality of life. We stop the division and make sure we are a unified community. That's how we move forward together. I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
Well, as you can all tell, I'm a man of few words. I tend to listen. I think listening is more important than talking. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear to vote for me. I'm going to work for you. That's what my purpose is. I've never been in politics before. I have no, other than mayor, to fix things in Jacksonville for all of you, I have no other political ambitions. Once the mayor's job's up, I'm out. Then that's what I'm here for. Thank you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. Mr. Keasler?
I'm going to stand because I want to apologize to y'all to my right. I've failed to really look at y'all a lot. I apologize because it's hard to look over all these people. But I have respect for y'all and this opportunity. Imagine a kid growing up here that's standing in front of the Beaches community asking them, please support this movement, this awakening, building together a city of people with their heads lifted. I mean, a kid, and now a man here in front of you. And remember this, you've heard these people say, I want smaller government, more police. And 20 years ago, our city discretionary budget was less than $300 million. Today, it's over 1.7 or 1.5 billion. We can keep on doing the same old thing, and we're going to find ourselves in the same place 8 years from now if we do not change the way we're doing things. And I'd ask you to do this. Look at all the candidates, and all they've promised is, I want better schools, better streets, safer streets, lower taxes. It's the same thing that they've said for 50 years in this town. This, and this. Time is up, and I'll leave you this. What do you get when you reverse the last and the first letter of this? And ask yourself where we are.
Well, that was a good ending, wasn't it, for this? I want to thank each and every one of you sincerely for your participation this evening, and also your willingness to serve your community. It's not hard. It's not easy, rather. It's very hard, as some of us that have that experience know. And so I would ask this audience to give an aggressive round of applause. Whoever is elected, I sure would like to have an opportunity to sit down with you after the election and go over these questions again. Now, you all have been a great audience, so I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause tonight for what you've done. And I too apologize to this side of the room that I put my back to you, but it couldn't be helped. Thanks. So, have a good evening, and thanks again for coming.